Mayor Shelburne is the first link. He has lots of big plans, you see. When he starts off the movie, he's a small little mayor in a small little sardine-like body in a tiny town. He craves more. He spends the first bit of the movie manipulating baby Brent, calling him a son, but turns to Flint Lockwood when that machine starts raining food. And then he eats. He devours more and more and more and becomes morbidly obese, but also world famous as he renames the town and invites the world to come check it out. He's gotten bigger in every way, as the tourists now say.
That is one big mayor.
So it would seem as though his goal of being larger was achieved, right? Well, no. And the answer is just beyond anything you can imagine. I'm already recovering from a cold. I don't even imagine I'll have my voice by the end of this. This lunatic keeps going and almost destroys the world with his food orders and then just leaves and gets lost at sea. And he still can't stop eating. What's wrong with him? He wasn't this dumb when the movie started. Desperate, but not like this. Well, here's the truth. When you look a little closer, you can start to see patterns, answers. I set my sights on his cousin. Cousin, you ask? Who the heck is that? Well, when Mayor Shelburne is about to unveil that sardine land, we learn that Sam Sparks and Manny were sent by one of their news network's executives. This executive approaches them and says he needs them to go out to a random island as a debt to his cousin. His cousin, then, of course, is Mayor Shelburne, who looks fairly similar to him, and while unveiling his spectacle, talks about how he managed to sneak some press coverage. So these two are cousins. Now see, take a look at this. We have a taller, more successful cousin and a shorter, less successful Mayor Shelburne. They have the sort of relationship that incurs debt, and they surround themselves with the same sorts of desperate people. The mayor brags about spending the town's budget without consulting anyone. He's boastful and craves success. The cousin is kind of dismissive, but still successful and an executive, so this family is power hungry, and Mayor Shelburne wants to become big, to one-up the cousin who is more than he is. This whole family seems to have father issues as well, which the mayor uses to try and manipulate both Brent and Flint. All of this makes him a little bit more sympathetic, but it doesn't answer why he basically loses his mind after the food weather starts. Nobody gains this many 100 pounds in a single month. Nobody. Except Mayor Shelburne, apparently. They do make sure to very clearly state the time scale of things. It is one single month. Only a superhuman could undergo that sort of metabolism, but then it hit me. The whole plot is basically explaining it to us. The food is mutated. The food is doing this, not because he's just eating constantly, but because he's eating so much of this food in particular. It operates differently in his digestive system, and he allows it to. All of the townsfolk are insane when they eat this stuff. Just look at the kids. But he's the figurehead of the island. He runs the show. He has to be big, and so he embraces the insanity that comes along with this. Remember, he breaks into the lab and constantly overloads the machine. He's like an insane mouthpiece for the machine itself, mutated in the worst way possible to the point of coughing up the sheer volume that he shoves inside and gulps more aggressively than anyone ever should. It's tragic, but he has the short end of the stick to begin with. He's been placed in charge of a small town in the middle of nowhere, selling failed sardines to failed people, and wait. Why? His cousin's back on the mainland, but he's stuck out here? How? The hell is this town? Okay, hold on, let's zoom out for a second, bringing us to the next piece of this whole conspiracy, Swallow Falls itself. This town, from what we see, is quite isolated. Seriously, take a look at this. It's out in the middle of nowhere, underneath the A in Atlantic Ocean on a map. It's a pretty developed American town, but it's so far from the mainland. And if Mayor Shelburne wants to be big and famous, then why would he settle for this town? Does he have some insider knowledge? Is he stuck here? Why does he stay? They say the town was famous for its sardines, but what's weird is that they eat damn near only sardines. They don't even have other food, they just starve themselves and eat what little is around them. I mean, the mayor may have been eager for sardine success, but it failed, so what exactly is the missing puzzle piece? What, or rather who, is really running this place? To discover the answer, I watched through the movie all over again and then watched through its sequel. If you've seen it, you'll recall that they leave the island for a while and come back to find that the food has turned into a whole Garden of Eden, and it's being industrialized by the guy they left to clean it up. So dear viewers, the answer to who's running this should be obvious. Mayor Shelburne gets lost at sea, and in comes Chester v. This man is world famous. He's the villain of the sequel. He is Flint Lockwood's childhood idol, a Bill Nye sort of figure on TV, but he innovates and controls much of the outside world too, like a next-generation Steve Jobs. His most important focus is the special food bars that he makes and sells to the world. Right as the first film ends and the second one begins, Chester comes in and claims that the United Nations consulted him to clean up the food mess across the world. But that's not the whole story. You see, this man isn't the cleanup crew. If you've seen the movie, you know he's secretly evil, of course, and here to relocate the citizens to California while he collects Flint's machine for evil purposes. Stop! Stop right there. Few questions. How did this man show up with such perfect timing? Why would the UN allow him to come here and not somewhere with a ton of casualties? How does he even know the machine survived? How does he already know how it works and have a kill code and an evil plan? And most importantly, how, if he is at all under jurisdiction of the United Nations, does he have the authority and secrecy to industrialize the island with an evil laboratory? Yes, this is the plot of the sequel. Yes, he's evil, and the answer to all my questions is yes. I'm fairly certain this man, who owns, feeds, and runs much of the world, has been influencing Swallow Falls this entire time. Oh, viewers, this puzzle is clicking rapidly. See, here we have an isolated island with a bizarre controlled sardine dilemma. According to Flint, the world just suddenly realized that sardines are super gross, but who influences the public perception of food? Why, the master of food bars himself, Chester V. It's the whole point. The food bars end up being the whole point of the sequel. Chester comes to the island to steal the machine, create food animals, and crush them into his bars because they taste better. So if Chester is running this whole thing, it makes sense. The mayor was being manipulated by Chester. Chester, who I'm sure promised big things for Mr. Shelburne. Chester, who runs science divisions, government operations, the food industry, and all manner of technological advancement. Chester, the only one with the means, power, and reasons to own Swallow Falls from the get-go. But why? Why control all of this? Why set all this up? To what end? How does this complete our puzzle? Well, we can figure out what his ultimate goal was if we analyze the result. He wanted his food bars to taste better. So how does that connect to the sardines of Swallow Falls? Well, I mean, Flint created the machine, which created the food that Chester needed, but how could he possibly influence that? Oh, wait. Flint only had the desire to generate food from thin air because his town was stuck with the sardines that we established Chester V has control over. So what am I saying? I am saying that Chester V built a town on a dying industry just so he could change the narrative and crash them, forcing them to innovate. This is exactly what happened. Don't believe me? Well, the only other food we saw in Swallow Falls was the food bars we see Flint eating, which Chester promotes endlessly on his show. He's trying to spur innovation from children who are under pressure in one colossal, isolated island experiment. He owns it all, and Mayor Shelburne gets benefits, such as the ability to rapidly enter Flint's lab at will, Flint screaming, "How'd you get in here?" to no answer, as he types in codes that he has no business knowing. Chester is in control. Always was. And looking closer, Flint Lockwood obviously showed the greatest promise among all the Swallow Falls children, but how much evidence is there to suggest that he actually became Chester's main focus for all those years? Well, Flint's obviously the protagonist, but he's also the target of bullies like Baby Brent and Earl the policeman. They hone in and ostracize him. The mayor sends Earl and Brent after Flint fairly consistently. Brent even makes a point of entering the Lockwoods' tackle shop out of nowhere just to taunt Flint of all people on the day Sardine Land's opening. Mayor Shelburne, being under the authority of Chester, would also explain how Chester knows which manipulation tactics to use against Earl and Brent, repeatedly calling them out as bullies, always using police tape against Earl, knowing of Earl's danger senses, and having such information as Flint's father issues, iterated down through the mayor's father issues right into Earl's manipulation against Flint to create the ice cream snow day. Don't believe me? Well, the mayor uses Flint's dad to manipulate him too. Shocker. Also, notice how the characters take no time at all in changing their opinions of Flint, even though they've presumably hated him for years, unless they've only been ordered to hate him by Mayor Shelburne and therefore Chester. You know, obviously none of these people have direct contact with Chester, just Mayor Shelburne, but the mayor does do as he's told. Earl was probably hired even. I'm betting him and his wife are ex-special ops agents or some shit. Same goes for the jack of all trades himself, immortal cameraman Manny, who was brought into the fray by Mayor Shelburne's cousin, who is, yes, also Chester's puppet. Manny records everything, even when it's not asked of him, and is also the first to spot the duality of Chester's company logo. The sequel ends with the three teaming up against Chester, now puppets without strings. It's as if everyone knows just a little bit more than they let on, sort of like how Sam Sparks is actually super smart, or how these puzzle pieces are clicking in plain sight. Speaking of which, this second piece that we're still on is obviously very large, but it's very important to unlock the dark side. And you know, there are plenty of good characters in Flint's life. I think his dad is pretty clueless and innocent, but many are not so nice. And I do think Chester himself intervenes from a safe distance. I mean, is it any coincidence that Flint creates a monkey thought translator shortly after Barb starts appearing on Chester V's TV program? No. Flint himself even says the truth, staring us down in plain sight.
It was like Chester V was speaking directly to me.
Because he was. This psychopathic madman masquerading as Bill Nye the Science Guy still can't help but reveal his true nature, though. He tells them all watching, you most certainly will never be me. He can't keep his narcissism down. He knows it's targeted. He knows he's setting this up. He's limiting their potential, if ever so slightly. He's so manipulative that I can't help but feel he puts everything in place to achieve what happens in the first movie, creating his kill code so far in advance. And here's a question. How on earth did the machine suddenly become a rocket that has the ability to float in the atmosphere? This makes no sense. It was never designed with any ability to levitate. It was only after Flint strapped it to the town's power station. The station that, yes, Chester would be controlling, as he pits mayor against cousin and sets up food, weather as a grand promotional publicity stunt, employing the Weather Network cousin for news coverage and mutation and manipulation, and the mayor's excessive pressing insanity, and the fact that there are literal meteorological diagrams on his food bar calculations. Why? People, this is planned. And Barb hates what it's all becoming. She constantly slams Sam Sparks in meteorology. Don't believe me? Don't believe the excessive meddling? Well, the mayor has to get his high-interest loans from somewhere, and Buddy in at the 11th hour comes to collect. He needed a scapegoat, and all the storyboards, hypotheticals, commercials, and plans are in the very same 2D style of Chester's science diagrams. So, dear viewers, as we zoom further and further into the farce that is Flint Lockwood's life, we get more of the picture and come closer to the biggest culprit, the final puzzle piece, the dastardly one who spurs Flint's worst impulses and annihilates him from the inside of his very soul. Chester is the one pressing him from a safe distance, but the one who encourages him through trial and tribulation, through danger and disaster, is actually his late mother, Fran. She's just at the beginning of the movie, and she is the only one to press him. She buys him posters of all his heroes, and Flint's constant failures mean nothing. She keeps him going. She gets him the lab coat, and her influence is there long after she dies, through both films, lingering over everything. In a more direct sense, too, Flint's dad is a counterbalance, and she is the only character left for the puzzle. So if she's pushing Flint this hard, why? Who is she? What is her goal? Is she just, a loving mother, or is there something more here? It should be noted that Flint's dad owns what was at one time a fairly successful fishing shop in a fairly successful fishing town. Maybe she made a deal to get them more money? No, that's not it. She named her son a pun, Flint Lockwood, almost in the name of fame. She was dead set on his success and his genius. The connection is direct, explicit, intentional. If she's linked, in this case, it would have to be directly to Chester himself then. We get one scene of her, and there isn't much to analyze, only one depiction. And dear people, I'm on the right track because damn it all to hell, she's wearing a prototype of Chester V's logo. Shit! In the television show Chester V produced, we don't even see one hint of his orange hexagonal flowers. It's his new thing, the future's here, the whole fixation with Live Core, the food bars, this logo that struck immense fear into the food animals everywhere. But he doesn't even have it until after she does. After she dies. How has nobody ever caught this? His aesthetic is absent from everything except her. Immediately after Flint watches the show, we catch a flashback of her bestowing the lab coat to him. Flint wasn't just randomly the center of the experiment. The reason he became the focus later on is because he was the only one directly influenced by a member of Chester V's team. She loved her son and wanted him to become the solution to humanity. She pressed, and it gave her delight in knowing her son would be the brilliant savior. And then she disappears right after. This is around the time that Chester's aesthetic changes. He catches wind of her deleterious meddling and kills her to take her ideas and boastfully plaster his organization with her progress, while begrudgingly accepting that Flint is the best chance for innovation. He turns her ideas evil and shits on her legacy. This is why he hates Flint and tries turning his friends on him long after he needs to. Oh, now I'm getting angry. I'm losing my voice. Chester's at the point where he could innovate food bars himself, but he's spiteful and he wants to annihilate the legacy of the business partner who flew too close to the sun. He brings Flint to his headquarters just to mock him and pretend like he's important by bestowing his dream position to someone just like him. It's no coincidence that the position went to a man named Flintley, who has an unruly mop of hair and is from an island. It's a means of torment. Fran Lockwood's influence persists through everything, and even the machine is constructed with her jug and her colander. Chester killing his lab partner pressure cooks Flint double time, but Chester's not stupid. He's spiteful, and she was smart too. So let me ask, what other scientists do we get to see, which Chester shows some begrudging respect yet aberrant disdain for? Someone who's stuck with him, someone who betrays him to save Flint, someone under his control and confused and conflicted, yet autonomous and extremely intelligent. The ape that started off basic but became insanely mature between decades, right on schedule, Flint's mother, is the unified field theorist who Chester V ripped the brain out of and crammed into Barb. That's it! It's what they talk about! This is why he lies to her about his plans. This is why she turns on him and joins the gang. She doesn't have the whole brain. It's not all her. It's just what's left of her. Barb has what's left of his mother's brain. She can't help but be spurred by her maternal impulses and true nature, and she was set to tour Flint herself. Coincidence? No. It's the ultimate insult. Barb is unknowingly Flint Lockwood's dead mother, or at least what's left of her, and it was through her continued influence and being betrayed by Chester that she managed to complete her son's destiny into becoming the anti-Thinquanaut. Okay, so we've almost unlocked the sickening shit, and my voice is damn near gone already. You know what else sucks? I've recorded this about 4 times because I keep forgetting to click the button. Okay, so far we've got the mayor very likely comes from a family of desperate power grabbers. One being his cousin at the Weather Network. He undergoes drastic physical changes because the machine has mutated food. And this whole time he's been scheming, as years ago, to achieve his goals of becoming a big mayor, he was manipulated by Chester into running a fake little town. It's all an experiment to pressure cook the youth into innovating Chester's food bars for him. And ultimately that happens. With time, they particularly hone in on Flint Lockwood, and everyone is controlled by authorities like the mayor, all leading back up to Chester. Chester chose Flint because Flint's mother was his business partner. He gets jealous of Flint's innovations and kills her, using her unified field theory to extract her mind and stick her intelligent brain inside of his orangutan to power it up. He then tries destroying Flint's legacy out of raw hatred in the sequel before he dies. And now, the crazy shit. Ladies and gentlemen, this puzzle is endless, much like a recursive primate turducken. And let's be clear, there is a fair possibility that Chester could actually be Flint's dad, if all this is the case. I mean, it does work genetically about as well as Tim Lockwood does, and interestingly, Sardine Boy himself, Eye of the Prize, father issues, fits the genetic description of Tim Lockwood's biological child as well, but that's definitely for another day. People, this is the part where the puzzle goes dark. We've only covered the light side, of course, the soft side. Get ready to rotate 90 degrees into a complex dimension beyond your imagination. A plane of suffering, untold shock, and appalling consequences. The darker side of this moon is so batshit psychotic, it'll have you squealing on the floor like a skinned piglet. I was going to wait, but I cannot. Barb is an amnesiac animal who idolizes the man who powered her up. There's a bonus scene at the end of the second movie where Barb offers to get coffee with Steve and implies that they start dating. Hold up. Stop, wait. First, these two are totally different species, but that pales in comparison to the fact that she is also, human? I wish I didn't have to think about these things, but here we are. I think Chester has normalized crossbreeding to increase population statistics, and I think he's on the threshold of world domination. Holy fuck. Okay, hold up. Okay, it would make sense, especially if he's dated Flint's mom like I presumed. And what's this? Flint's monkey thought translator works on his dad? What is this movie implying? Whenever I think about these things, I hope and pray that they won't recklessly traumatize me. Do I ever get what I want? Just more pain and agony. Barb decks herself out with glitter, gloss, makeup, all sorts of attractive human characteristics. She's very, very specific about being referred to as an ape and not just some monkey, which is a lesser being to her. You know, I can't help but feel like it's something in the coffee. I mean, it's everything to these employees. They're addicted, and she wants to give some to Steve at the end as well. Don't believe this ties back? Well, dear viewer, I'm sorry to shatter your fragile innocence, but when Barb tours Flint and Steve into Chester's headquarters, his employees tell us all we need to know.
Hot! Not too bad yourself, monkey.
I'm too innocent for this. Humans are too innocent for this. You're too innocent for this. Why does this exist? But the bigger question is, to what end? He's promoting this to make him, self feel better? No, there's a goal, of course. Well, people seem to take any relationship they can get, which is, obviously it's not with animals, but there is a sort of reflection of society in there. What I think Chester is evolving everything so as to maintain a state of overpopulation that is not only less intelligent, but more docile and controllable. Is there evidence that this world has more people in it? Yes, of course there is. It's absolutely f***ing everywhere. In this bizarre hybrid town, we can see that there are a ghastly, unspeakable, whopping 62 trillion terminals. This would iterate the world population out to a minimum of 560 quadrillion people. Look at that population density behind the docks. Chester owns everything. It's why he has the relocation means. His facility encompasses the entire underground of the city. The city is even known for being his HQ. They say it. Look at it all. People. It's real. They damn near have to build cities underground at this point, which brings me to the kicker. What do you do with the disposable masses? It's the whole plot of these films. Food. It's the food bars. He needs living livestock. I was hesitant, but it's true, ladies and gentlemen, it's true. It simply is. There's no other purpose for the excessive crossbreeding, and as Chester lowers the gang into his blender, he has no qualms, but is in fact enthusiastic.
Food bars? You're going to turn them into food bars?
Yes!
And what's his fate? Chomp! Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is a prequel to Soylent Green, and this man is a stone-cold sadistic psychopath. I have every reason to believe that he could have even been killed and replaced by his clones at this point, but no one would even know. I mean, they're all rubbery, apathetic, robotic, ghostly fake, and his hair has changed, and all the other holograms are smart enough to play chess, brainstorm, and apparently they think they can carry him. Dear viewers, this is sickening me to the raw fucking nerve. Additionally, it should be noted that there does exist a spin-off show which is supposed to be a prequel. If you've seen even one episode of it, you know full well that the whole thing breaks the fucking universe's continuity. Sam Sparks shows up in Swallow Falls as a teenager, the mayor's a werewolf, Manny even lives there, it's whack. They vaguely try filling in holes regarding Flint later meeting Sam for the first time, but none of it adds up. He haphazardly says he'll erase their memory so they can meet him all over again, but it's a cop-out and nothing really makes sense. More importantly, that in particular solves none of the other colossal gaping plot holes contained within the entire premise of the show. The retconning here borders on reprehensible. For those who've sat through it, to my knowledge, there are equally as many pieces of evidence that prove my theories today as well as disprove them in the show, but that equalization doesn't even matter because, again, it's openly non-canon, and it's created by a bunch of completely different people who have no connection to the films, but comment on that matter if you've seen it, and it serves good to do so. If you aren't subscribed, do it now, please. It's very important to me that I hit 1 million after all this trauma! If you've already done that, all I can ask is that you please join my Patreon if you want access to my Discord or early viewing of my upcoming theories, Total Drama, Matilda, any more niche topic you may request there. I'll do those, and I'll give you shout-outs. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need therapy, because the robot holograms are going to eat us all, and I am disgusted. They are just like the machine that gained sentience and created an Eden with its very own strawberry-flavored Jesus Christ. I mean, Chester's using that machine to mutate the population with his food. We're all going to turn out like Mayor Shelburne. I don't even know what to say. Flint's mom knew he'd usher in the next generation of life, but it was sickening, and this woman is a true mastermind. And the extra special thanks to Plasmite and Quantum Server.